Everyone is about to begin. Yeah. I'd like to thank you all for coming to this very important lecture given by John Pilat and Nick Lehn. We have been working on these lectures for about 3 months now. I mean, well, we've got one more person. Alright, yeah, they've been working on these pieces for about 3 months now, and they've just been putting so much work into this, and they're really happy to just show this to everyone tonight. And our first act is going to be, Nick Lehn is going to be giving his speech on pencils, how many are too many, followed by the main event, John Pilat will be speaking on tea, when and where to drink it. And audience participation is encouraged. We would like people to ask questions, and if you have a specific question like, can I have 5 pencils in my pocket and a pen in my other pocket? Nick Lehn will answer that question. Or if you want to say, can I drink tea at 9 o'clock in haze? John Pilat will answer that question. And afterwards we have selections of cookies and teas. And
do we have pencils?
Nick, do we have pencils? You've had 3 months! This is embarrassing. Didn't even bring it.
Well, what if his answer is 1 is too many unless he didn't bring it?
That's not true, people. Alright, alright, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Nick Lehn.
Yeah, I prepared for this lecture. I went on, I think, everyone's most reliable website, which is, of course, naturally Wikipedia. So they had a very nice, detailed website, but it was just too damn long, so I didn't read it. So I just kind of got the best of moments from the Wikipedia website, and just kind of threw random quotes in there, and you know, some of it may be made up, I don't know. I read an article today on Wikipedia, apparently a very elaborate Wikipedia article, about a fake upper peninsula war between the Upper Peninsula and Lower Peninsula of Michigan, which a bunch of people have like cited in papers and things. It's a totally fake war. So I don't know if I trust Wikipedia entirely as reliable a source as it is, but so to begin this lecture today on pencils. What was the tagline, JP? Pencils?
How many
is too many? Okay, yes. We'd like to begin with a quote by Jean Anselme Brie-Savarin. It's a very impressive French-sounding name, like Toulouse-Lautrec or very similar. Anyway, show me what you eat, and I will tell you what you are. You may be wondering how that applies to pencils. I'm asking myself that same question. It sounded impressive in French, so. I think what Jean Anselme Brie-Savarin is trying to express with his metaphor for food is, you know, I think one person's handwriting can tell you a lot about who they are. And of course, wrapped up in handwriting, the writing implement of choice. So, you know, I mean, if someone looked at my handwriting, they'd probably think it was either a trained monkey, or a 5-year-old, or an untrained monkey, if they're being generous. I still remember in first grade, my first grade journal, giant letters all across the page. And middle school, giant letters all across and college, giant letters all across the page. Yeah, I'm still like the only person in my class to go for like 2 blue books. Not because I'm writing a lot, or because it's all brilliant, or the words are flowing from my pen, but because my handwriting is so damn big. So, so I think Jean Anselme Brie-Savarin's quote is, I think, a good one to keep in mind for the rest of this lecture. Now, so what should we go back to? What is a pencil, really? Is, I think, the core of what this lecture is trying to ascertain. The core
is made of graphite.
And there's some really funny Wikipedia statistics about all of the really painful deaths that you can get from lead poisoning. But I'll go into that a little bit later. So what is a pencil, and how many should one have on the person at any given time? I think those are questions that we're all asking ourselves on a daily basis. I know I make sure and leave with a certain number of pencils. I leave my room every morning, usually somewhere between 3 and 5. For example, on my person currently, I have 4 pencils. Yeah, they are, I don't even know, Office Paper-Made Classic. The other one is an Office Depot number 2. So that brings me to my next point. Why number 2 pencils? Why is it always number 2 pencil? I learned today from my studious research on this topic that apparently there are other numbers. There's a number 1 pencil, a number 3 pencil, a number 4 pencil. Also, most perplexingly, a number 2.5 pencil.
That's 9.
Yes, apparently, yeah. I see someone else has been doing good research in preparation for this lecture.
I heard it comes up to 11.
Yeah, exactly. So it actually apparently corresponds to a European system of hardness and boldness. So number 2 is HB, apparently. It's hard and bold. I don't know. Gray to like really dark black or something. So yeah, so there are many types of pencils. You have, of course, the Office Mate. I think the one that our Johns and my professor most famously enjoys is a number 2 Dixon Ticonderoga pencil. Bright yellow, very good. He gave us all actually a Dixon Ticonderoga pencil. One day in lecture we were going after giving us back paper. But I'd like to transition at this point in my lecture to someone who I've never actually met, but I think most of us in this room have heard at least something about, from someone sitting over here. And that professor, the one, the only, who looks like a giant gnome, Hugh Lester, who said, among other things, talking about bats and elephants in a course on stage managing. Among said other things, I think this most nobly relevant one, which I will try and do my best now to personally. He sounds like a gnome, kind of like crossed with Winston Churchill. You need 5 pencils. You have more than 5 pencils. You're taking up space for something useful, like a pen. Can't have too many pencils. So in that note, I have. What if you don't have enough? And that's the thing, which is why I carry 4 pencils.
Not 5.
Not 5. I know. I've modified because I have 4 pencils and a pen.
Wow.
You're one of those new age.
I am new age. So why I carry around so many pencils, you might ask, and why my pants, some jeans have holes through them, or have poked various people, including myself, accidentally, with them. It's because I write a lot, and it kind of wears down the pencil over time, and I don't have a piece of flint or a pencil sharpener in my pocket, so I can't sharpen the pencil. So I'm just like, all right, next one. I also erase very profusely as well, so that wears down the pencils. So interestingly, yeah, originally you had to sharpen pencils with a knife. I didn't know. Before they invented the pencil sharpener, even the the little twisty thing that we all get in first grade, even that one. Yeah, so a history of pencils. They started off as a stylus, was the first thing. A little metal or lead thing, and then someone found that you can write with. My more creative, which I think someone mentioned the other day, more creative invention of the pencil was that it was actually called a pay-missile, and was an ancient Egyptian torture device where you stabbed it in the person's eye, and it just caused another thing. And then they dropped it on the ground and then found it left a mark. They were like, oh, I can write with this. And it'll be brilliant. My words will flow off the page, and it'll be awesome. So, yes.
Was there still a grading system of hardness and boldness for the torture device?
I think some of the less translated, although going back, of course, to ancient Egypt. So I'm sure some hieroglyphs, the hardness to boldness scale underneath one of, like Tutmos II or something. Tutmos II being, of course, the one who first used a pencil for torture. Yeah, that's number 2 pencil. Yeah, in an ancient Egyptian tomb somewhere in Egypt, you have a gigantic, elaborate mosaic or art thing I didn't take studio art. The art thing on the wall, and under it you have a Dixon dichronochrono pencil. That's what I'm envisioning. So yeah, start off as a stylus. Lead. They were made of lead before someone discovered graphite in the 19th century. So it caused a lot of brutal things, which I'm just kind of going to list off as a form of lead poisoning, which could be gained from a small, very, very tiny puncture wound that had to be physically removed from the arm. Otherwise, it would cause things like necrosis, and which you might have to amputate the arm, as well as fever, chills, pain, swelling, nausea, vomiting, and then, of course, decapitation. So, death will ensue from lead poisoning, which is why they used graphite, which is a wonderful thing. Yeah, so I guess this goes back to what is a pencil and how many are too many. I think you all individually, before you leave this room today, need to ask yourselves that question. And how many pencils are too many for you personally? Because for me, I like 4. Rosie, you might like 7. Robert, you might like mechanical pencils. Mechanical pencils! Mechanical pencils. They're plastic, and yet, but they have lead in them. Oh, which could kill you, as we've already learned. So you have lead in them. Oh, they're saving the environment, and yet they're made of plastic, which doesn't decompose. So how is that environmentally friendly? But anyway, yes.
I'm sorry. Could you please speak to the simple construction of pencils in our society?
The answer to that question, no.
Sure. Well, that goes back to what is a pencil? What is a pencil?
We don't know.
I guess that's why you're all here. No one knows. We'll never get to Moscow. Pencil. Okay, big, starts off this big, without a little sharpening bit. Yes?
I have a question concerning the size of the pencil, because I know that when you're using pencils, some people, like, after it's like half the size, they just throw it away.
Sure.
What is your opinion on when you should stop using pencils?
For me personally, and I know this is wasteful and Laura has recycled a number of my pencils in the past, but for me personally, I like having a pencil with an eraser. So when the eraser is worn down, and I even go so far as to peel the little metal bit to try and get more of the erasers. Anyway, usually ends up falling off, gets lost in my pocket, I don't think. That is when I stop using the pencil. Normally it's down to about here, so I'm not being terribly wasteful. I feel like beyond the point where you can grab it, is I think, you could theoretically grab something that's like a millimeter long. It may not write very well. You might run into some difficulty. Might look more like calligraphy. But, I think it varies again from person to person. But again, what is a pencil? Going back to this question. Oh, let's tell us. I am rhetorical questions. Right. So I think it's it's a long thing. It's a means of communication. It's a means of talking from one person to another, which is such a key thing in human, just in animalia in general, but especially for humans, as we need to communicate with each other because we're not telepathic, although some of us might be. But most of us are not telepathic. We need some other means to communicate. The origin of the pencil could go back as far as a stick in the sand and drawing, and then the waves washed it away, and it's very poetic, and your words are gone with the tide, and life is this ephemeral rose thing. Elaborate poetic metaphor. But so I feel like that's the true means, and it begs the question: much will the pencil go the way of the newspaper in terms of as the computer comes along and is taken up, is the primary means of communication between people? What will happen to in-person contact, even let alone pencil or newspapers or what other sorts of archaic communication devices? So I think that's the one question is, in our professors' generation, they'd be the ones who they didn't have computers, they didn't have typewriters maybe, but they didn't have I'm sure we all have professors that predate the typewriter, however. That being said, our professors, I don't know. Judy Smith, for example. Royal Roads may also fall in that category, but anyway, so how did they just wrote everything down. If they made a mistake, they had to scratch it off. No, they couldn't go and use their nice little mouse and go back and make adjustments and edit it and copy and paste and those newfangled technologies. So what the pencil was their means of communication, or the pen. Whenever the pen was invented, I don't know. This is about pencils. I didn't research pens, so you can't ask me about pens. Robert.
If Our pencil becomes obsolete.
Yes.
Will we no longer need to carry pencils on our person?
I think Luddites like myself and various other people maybe might still go around carrying pencils or fountain pens.
Could one be too many?
Could one be too many?
Is there a future?
Is there a future where one pencil is too many? That would be a very dark future. A sad fate for humanity. We're left in a position where this is gone. Is in a museum. This Office Depot #2 pencil is in a museum. Our children's children will be, Daddy, tell me about the day that you wrote on pencil. And I'll say,
Well, son, back in my day, I had to write everything out on paper, and it took me 15 hours to write on paper. I didn't have your newfangled hive mind technology.
something like that. No.
You say that 11 pencils at a time is too many because I had a friend who brought 11 pencils to school one day, and then 2 months later he was attacked by a bear.
The first image that comes to mind, Mr. Heinrich, when I think of that, is the old Trix commercial with the rabbit going after the Trix, and then suddenly, they give him the Trix. I don't know how that was relevant at all, but bears, yeah. So I think you can draw a direct correlation between carrying 11 pencils in your pocket and bears. I think especially on our hill in Ohio surrounded by cornfields, there might be a bear somewhere. I mean, clearly there are lions and zebras and God knows what else. So there might be a bear. So in that case, maybe you might not want to walk around with 11 pencils because that clearly attracts the scent of bears and they'll all kill you. Yes.
When you say that, do pencils correlate or do not correlate to the fruity in id? And when you say, how does the way that people perceive us change depending on how many pencils we own?
Good question. That's a very complex, very psychological, philosophical.
Well, we already talked about side.
I mean, if it's down to here, you don't use it, but if it's up to here,
Is that what you said?
Seeing as you said it, I think it is what you said.
I didn't actually say it.
She said things. I don't know.
She's all of us.
See, if you didn't have the pencil, all of our communication would just be, I said this, she said, big man, climb over mountain, steal verbs and nouns. Clearly that is false. Much like the ancient Egyptians and pencils. Yes, right.
So, how would you be able to use the pencil as a method of self-defense?
Ooh. I think while it could be used as a means of torture, it could therefore also be used as a means of self-defense. I mean, there could be some martial arts of fencing.
Because Noah Heinrich's friend, who had 11 pencils, was
You
attacked
didn't have
by
the
a bear.
pencils with him when the bear attack happened.
What?
I mean, Miles reminded me a couple of hours ago of the
You could've
scene
used
from
the
The Dark
pencils to
Knight.
stab the bear.
With
That was me.
Oh, that was Mara. Yes, Mara reminded me a couple of hours ago the scene from The Dark Knight and the pencils and the stabbing and the so yes, could be used as a lethal weapon, especially a lead-based pencil. John.
So, the Joker.
Yes.
Did he have enough pencils?
One,
Too many. Not enough.
He made it out of there alive, so I feel like he probably had enough pencils. I think killing the mob boss or whoever that was enough to, get out of there alive and incite fear and minds.
What if his fate was worse than death, and then they said that he'd not have enough pencils?
I would say that it would be a fate worse than death because if you're like me, you wouldn't have anything to write with. And you'd just be stuck there in a world, because of course I own a computer, I don't know, like some world where you don't have a computer out in the woods somewhere and you're writing on a bark paper. I don't know.
Seeing with our nation's obsession with #2 pencils during examinations, wouldn't you say that we're pressuring our children to underachieve by not going for the #1?
Amen, brother. And maybe we all strive for a day where our children and our children's children and our children's 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 children will write with the number 1 pencil.
Doesn't that mean obsolete? I'm curious, so since the topic of this lecture is, how many pencils must you carry at a given point, is there, a difference between, so for example, you have 4 number 2 pencils, is that the equivalent of, say, 2 number 1 pencils, or 1.5 number 2.5 pencils? Yeah.
Or number 8 pencil?
Yes.
If they go up to 9, number 8 pencil. So 4 number 2 pencils could add up to a number 8 pencil if we're going with mathematics. I feel like if we're going by the standard of a number 1 pencil as a higher quality than a number 2 pencil, as per Andrew's recommendation, then then clearly if you have 4 number 2 pencils, it should be the equivalent of 2 number 1 pencils, or maybe 1 number 1 pencil. I don't know the conversion. However, you'd be fucked on examinations because they're all number 2 pencils today. Yes.
What would you say about the nature of colored pencils, and do those count towards the total number of pencils you have?
If you're an art student, I would say you can never have too many pencils because, there are whole cases of colored pencils from like mauve to red to orange to chartreuse to lime green, I don't know, whatever other Crayola crayon colors.
Color. Don't talk about Crayola.
I'm offended an art student. Apologize, yes. But no, the huge giant array of colored pencils for every occasion. Weddings and funerals and Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa.
Diwali.
Diwali, yes. Yeah, yes.
In a 1913 book of Do's and Don'ts for Husbands, Victorian Englishmen, or Edwardian Englishmen, apologize, were advised that they should stop sharpening pencils around the house as the shavings annoyed their wives. In the present day, how many pencils is too many and begins to disrupt the household unity of any given household?
Well, I'm merely an expert on pencils and not on Edwardian England. Specifically,
I asked for modern day.
For modern day, yes, for modern day context. I think the average housewife or husband, house husband, would may be annoyed by a constant sharpening of pencils. However, those non-mechanical ones, they get the job done quickly, but they're so loud. So maybe the handheld one where you just go like shh, 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 and you're done. Very quiet, very muted. You could go outside and do it and just get out of the house entirely and then not cause problems. I don't know why that never occurred to Edwardian, socialites and whoever needed nice giant pencils. To go outside of the house if they're causing a disruption. However, that being said, there were a number of there were on a number of occasions this summer. I have defamed pencils.
You have 3 others. It's okay.
We could make a religion around this pencil. we could imbue it with religious quality. Anyway, that's another story for another time.
How many is too many?
Tell us the answer.
Maybe.
Did you not think of that?
3 months.
I need to know.
I think I shall
Clearly
conclude.
11.
Yes, I think clearly if we're going by Noah's comment that 11 will get you eaten by a bear, clearly 11 is too many pencils. However, maybe it's a chart where it goes up and up and up and up and up and then drops down dramatically until you get to 11 and then that's bear territory. And then maybe 20 is rolled over by a car territory, and 30 is shark. 40, 37 is maybe bar fight or something.
So if pencils could theoretically cause the apocalypse.
42. Why not? 42 pencils. That seems like a good number.
That's too many.
That's probably too many. That might go way far.
Is it okay to carry extra pencils if you only use them to do the spinning around the thumb trick?
Yeah, we've entered into the category of pencil sports. That's a good thing. There are many things that you can use a pencil for other than writing. We kind of went there with weaponry and self-defense and offense, but darts, you can see it as a dart. I can't do the twirl it around a thumb trick, so I feel like that.
You have 3 months.
I know. So I feel like that'd be what?
It's rubber.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah,
How's he doing this?
If you were to brew a pot of chamomile tea, what hardness pencil would you use to write about
I like your thinking, sir. You're thinking, combining both as a true liberal arts student.
That's what I mean. To talk about tea and
pencils. You know, I would say that a tea brewing situation. Now you can ask John the same question. I think it'd be equally valid to ask John the same question. But I would say, from the pencil standpoint, that a number 2.5 pencil would be most appropriate. Just
you don't think
because
it'll be too bitter?
Oh,
if you're licking the graphite and then writing had the chamomile.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. Point. You know, I've never really licked a pencil other than a number 2, since again we're in such a world, as Andrew pointed out, that we are not allowed to use other forms of pencil other than a number 2, and don't have access to a number 1. So maybe a number 4 would taste terribly. A number 2 might taste a little bit better. I really do think a number 1 pencil is the way to go. 1 or 2.5, just from the sheer ridiculousness of it being in existence, and it being the only half number on the scale. 2.5. Why? I don't. But I think in that sense, now would be appropriate time to segue into tea. Speaking of tea, so the illustrious John Pilat.
So, to answer that question, then I'll start the lecture, but I'm going to give my half of it. I'm actually going to differ a little bit on that. Since chamomile is such a solid, kind of nice calming tea, you don't really want to go with anything too crazy. And since Nick said number 2 pencils, best one, number 2. Lick it first, then start writing. Okay, so yes. So I have, of course, I have notes. They're written in pen. Don't tell anyone. So I'd ask that you keep your questions to the end, because I've written this to be a very serious lecture, unlike Nick, which is fine, which is great. But I really to be very serious, and hopefully that seriousness will provide you all with a lot of laughs. Alright, so, tea, when we're drinking. Before I start with the formal lecture part, I wanted to get just a few people who could tell me some thoughts that they have about tea. Tea, I found, in my experience, is one of those things that everybody thinks about. Everyone has a thought about it, even if you think you don't. Yeah, even if you think you don't, you do. So, does anyone have any thoughts about tea they'd like to share with us, or should I call on people? Because I know who I want to call on.
I thought you wanted our questions so we
See, I'd like to point out that I'm asking for more statements.
Okay.
And ideas. Do you have any statements for ideas?
No.
Elizabeth.
Every day is the day for so many cups of tea. That's pretty much it.
Good. That's a good starter. Yes?
It's yummy.
It is yummy. Indeed. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share? Ryan?
As Majority Alonzo likes to write poems about.
Alright. So, Noah, did you have something?
I've been told that tea is boiled leaves that come off the trees of Satan.
You said that quote? I think I read it actually earlier tonight.
I believe that was Satan who said that.
I wasn't sure. One more.
That's what I was gonna say.
Alright, so, like you guys, there are actually a lot of famous people who have thoughts about tea. Who would have thought, right? So, the quote that I'm going to share to start off this lecture, I think it's a good start to the lecture, is, I don't drink coffee, I take tea, my dear. Sting said that about tea. So, hopefully that gives you a sense that I'm convinced. I knew I would convince you that was. Alright, so, I mean, in my opinion, it's sort of like Sting said, right? Again, just think of Sting during this lecture. It's like Sting said, tea is all about your mindset, right? You don't drink tea. You drink coffee, and then you run out to do something. You take tea, and then you're good for the day. You're ready to go. Wow. Right? Yeah, it's wow, you know? So, to get to the when part, you know, just gonna go through, we're gonna do time by time. When you should take tea. I typically start off in the morning, right as I get up, boom, first cup of tea, activated. I like to start out my morning with black tea. We'll get into what black tea is in a bit. Don't worry. That's a big part of the lecture. We'll get into that soon. But I typically tend to start off with black tea. It's a good way to wake up and not really have to rush anywhere per se, but still wake up strong. Wake up ready for the day. That day is not going to beat you up anymore because you'll be fortified with some black tea like this. Yeah, it's really, yeah. So then I typically take my next cup of tea, maybe around 1 o'clock, 12:30, nice early afternoon cup. For that, I like to do kind of an Earl Grey or something like that. I prefer Earl Grey because it's got a nice peppery, kind of like snappy kind of taste to it. And once you take that, it doesn't have the strong potency of the black tea, but it's still peppy enough that you're ready to go. You're ready to climb out of that early afternoon slump when you've tried to fall asleep in your lecture. And not that I've done that. Not that I've done that. And just climb out of that and just be ready for that next part of the day. Because that next part of the day could be very important. So then, how many other times a day can you drink tea? That's 2 cups of tea already in one day. Well, a few more times. Late afternoon, I like to have another cup of tea. Right as I'm done with classes, I like to go back to my dorm room, put on a pot of tea. I typically try to have like a peppermint or an herbal tea because it sort of makes me really excited because I'm done with class. I'm done for the day. I may have to do some homework later, but I'm done with class. And I'm just so happy that peppermint perks me right up. So then early evening, like maybe a 7 o'clock-ish kind of thing, is probably one of my favorite times to have tea because typically you've just had dinner, you're starting to get down into that mode of the day where it's time to relax, right? Hopefully you've done all your homework, but this is finals week, so probably not. But ideally, you've done all your homework, you're ready to just sit down, relax, maybe watch some television, I don't know. But I like to have typically like a Lady Grey or maybe a Darjeeling tea, because it's not going to put me to sleep. But then I can just sit down and just sort of relax, do something quiet and not assuming, and just sort of have a good evening. But then, 4 cups of tea, right? You all are counting 4? Kate, you counted 4? All right, good. Because there's one more cup of tea. Right before bed, put it in your kettle. Chamomile tea, right before bed. Because that, makes you feel sleepy without being unhealthy. This is kind of a controversial thing. Some people like to put honey in their chamomile. I only try to do it when I'm sick, but we'll talk about that later. But chamomile right before you go to sleep, perfect. It's so good. I'm contemplating my cup now, actually. You'll fall asleep half-hour tops. And then you'll just feel great the next day. You'll be ready for your next cup of tea, black tea, in the morning. So that takes care of, I think, the when. And then remember, these are only my opinions. During the question part, I really want to take your questions about where and when and what kinds of tea you guys prefer. But those are my opinions. So the where. The where it can be a bit trickier because now some people would probably disagree, but I would say you could take tea anywhere and it would be awesome. I know, crazy. So really anywhere is good. Maybe a cafe, a dorm room even. I know, dorm room too. Pierce, you could take tea. A little bit less classy maybe, but you could do it. Take tea in the library and even in the comfort of your own living room at home. That's right, in your own living room. But the main thing, and I think this is very important, the main thing with tea is that when you take tea, you take tea. You don't pour it and walk away. You sit down, know, sort of like this. You sit down, brew your tea, and then you drink it. And it's a very slow process. You know, it's maybe take 15 minutes to have your tea. And then you get up, you're ready to go back to what you're doing. But the idea is that you just don't drink it and forget about it. It sort of should be an experience, you know? Sort of the idea is that you're there, you're gonna enjoy it. You are gonna enjoy it. I would say my recommendation is no matter where you take tea, and I listed those places specifically because I think it's always best to take tea in the company of other people. Because then you can really just talk about random things. How's the weather? Nothing too heavy. No, did you finish your essay? Or how's that final studying going? None of that. None of that business. Talk about the weather. Talk about a favorite book. Maybe one of your professors. If you're not talking about grades, just keep the conversation light, right? Because the idea when you take tea is a communal experience where everyone gathers around the pot, the teapot. Who would thought something else? Everyone gathers around the teapot and sort of just takes tea together. It's very calming, and it's great. It's just great. That's the when and where. Now I have a few more things to say before we open it up to questions. I would suggest in preparing tea, it's very important that you prepare tea properly. Because if you don't, then you're just drinking hot water with maybe a little flavoring. And you're just done. So to prepare tea, we're actually going to have a demonstration. There's some right here for you. Yeah, so to prepare tea, again, there are different types of tea. You can take your tea black, which means no milk or sugar, or you can have black tea, which is its own special brand of tea. We'd like to thank Charlie for providing an excellent example of black tea here. Yes, it's very good. Charlie's taking a picture of it, or filming it. So you can take your tea black, nothing in it, and that's. Sometimes I like to do that when I really need that jolt, like in the morning. Sometimes I don't add anything to my black tea, just woo, and I'm awake. So that's definitely an option. Typically, you could add milk or sugar to your tea. Now, I'm gonna get some controversy when I say this. I almost never add milk to my tea.
Whoa!
I know. Whoa! You monster! I know. And again, these are only my personal preferences because, again, I'm probably gonna get some flack for this too. I just know it, but I don't actually like the taste of milk.
Whoa!
Are you a person? I don't know.
I still take it in my tea.
I know. So again, huge personal preference, and as you can see, just in this room alone, very divisive. So. But I would encourage you all to try some milk in your tea. It sweetens it up a little bit, and for people who like milk, it can taste pretty good. You know, of course, you have your sugar, and sort of this might even go back to Nick's presentation. How much sugar is too much sugar? That's not something I can answer. That's something that comes purely from trial and error. You know, there have been times when you add in too little sugar and it's not quite as sweet as you want. But then if you add in too much sugar, it's ruined. It really is ruined. You will throw up a little bit. So I would, in my opinion, again, just a little advice, I would err on the side of too little sugar because you can always add a little more. Let's see. Oh, and one thing, we don't have any examples of loose leaf tea here. No examples of loose leaf tea here. There's a lot of people who really prefer loose leaf tea, sort of on the notion that it's more, what am I right here? It's more satisfying to prepare loose leaf tea. Sort of, you get to measure the leaves yourself, put it into the little tea ball, just put it in your cup for as long as you want, and then you're ready. It's from what I would say, it provides a lot more satisfaction. But of course, on the other hand, is the convenience factor, where you just open it. Oh, this one actually has it. Yeah. Where you just open it up, take out the bag, plop it in the cup. And then one more quick note about taking your tea. Prepare your tea. Tea bag goes in first, then the water. There's no other way to do it. Alright, one more quick thing, actually two more quick things before I take your questions. Biscuits, huge important part of taking tea. In America, we don't really have biscuits. We have things that are like biscuits, like these silly cookies that I got from the market. They're like biscuits in that they're tasteless and extremely bland. That's how you can that's how you know it's a biscuit, if you can't really taste it outside of the tea. Someone that I met once who was a very habitual tea drinker told me that the difference between a cookie and a biscuit is that a cookie has chocolate chips. Everything else is a biscuit. Keep that in mind. Yes, who said that? Biscuit.
Okay. Just get, what if you had fried chicken with chocolate chips? Would that be a cookie?
Yeah. Alright, good. Matter of personal preference. I would prefer mine unfried.
Whoa!
Alright, let me just, before we get to the questions, just want to share one more quote about tea that I think really speaks to the idea that tea brings people together. And I think tea really does bring people together. And Nick, I'm sorry, more so than pencils, I think tea really brings people together. So let me just share my last quote with you. I hope that next time we meet, we won't be fighting each other. Instead, we'll be drinking tea together. Jackie Chan. Who has questions? Yes, Megan, you first.
What is your philosophy on avoidance?
That's a huge question. I mean, I prefer it in some teas. I like it when it gives a light. I like it when it gives a light sort of chamomile tea, just a little bit of extra. But I would have to say only Kenyon that I would prefer. Anyone else have questions? Alright, but we're going to go from this side over. Alright, Laura, to Charles first. He's the most right.
What is your opinion on green tea?
Green tea, I think green tea is extremely good. I am a huge fan of green tea. I sort of tried to include it when I said more herbal teas. Of course, doesn't.
But you didn't say it any of the times of day.
No, because again, those are my opinions. Those would be my teas of choice.
Okay.
But if you were to substitute green tea for, say, the peppermint tea or the other herbal tea, for the late afternoon tea break, not a problem. Not a problem. You should do that, Charles.
Okay.
Can one put alternate forms of milk in with tea, such as soy milk or almond milk?
That's not something I'm qualified to speak to because I don't take milk. I would recommend trying it, but I mean, personally, I don't see why I wouldn't.
I have an opinion on that, actually.
Yes.
Vanilla soy milk with chai tea is the greatest thing in the entire universe. So.
I'm curious, you made the statement, as soon as part of this lecture is where to drink tea.
Yes.
You said really anywhere.
I would say.
I'm just personally curious. You know, movie theaters often don't want you to bring in outside beverages. Airport security doesn't allow you to bring in fluids of a certain point. Do you want to amend your statement that
No,
anywhere?
I would not amend that. That movie theaters, first of all, they don't want you to.
You're encouraging breaking
Yes.
the law.
No, yes, I once had
a rule is another name for a law.
I once had a pancake breakfast in a movie theater. You could bring tea and pancakes. For your second part of your question, in an airport, I would suggest the best way to drink tea in an airport, unless you want to drink it specifically in the security.
I do.
I would say try it first, and then maybe get back to me. I don't see why I wouldn't.
John will post your bail in there,
Yeah, I would do that.
Read the security guard note. That if you happen to be a security guard, in that case, it is fully acceptable for you yourself to drink tea there. And should you see a security guard drinking tea and you happen to be proceeding along nicely, you may attempt to ask them if you could have some of their tea. In which case, that'd be a wonderful bonding experience and possibly lower the feeling of paranoia in our airports that makes us feel so unwanted and unloved when we travel.
And once gaining this friendship, next time they will let me bring tea in.
See? You see, spread of tea, spread of love.
All right, Nick's up next.
2 questions. First is, what tea should we best drink during tea time?
All right.
And the second question is, what is a good entry-level tea for a person who doesn't drink much tea and is perhaps going to a very drinking place?
Well, Nick, it's certainly I wrote this lecture just for you. A good entry-level tea, I would say chamomile, because it's very easy to drink. It doesn't have a lot of strong flavors. So that's what I would say for a good entry-level tea. The best tea for tea time. That's rough. That's a rough question. Again, it's all about what you want in your tea at tea time. So, for me, you ask me right now, John, what's your favorite tea for tea time? Earl Grey. That's going to be my answer. But, you know, Nick Lehn, after spending time in the tea drinking culture, you might say something different. And I hope you do, because then we can have a debate about it. JP.
So, a lot of people in the summer, they don't like to drink hot drinks, so they might avoid tea. So what is your opinion on iced tea?
I actually had a quote about that, and I didn't write it down. I'm just going to try and... Yeah, I didn't write it down, but I say no, drink tea during the summer. That's the opinion.
So no iced tea?
No. I mean, okay, some people like their iced tea, but I think they're very different beverages, and I don't think it's a choice between iced tea, tea. I think they're very different. Drink your tea over the summer.
What about Arnold Palmer's?
That is iced tea and lemonade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad juju.
Not actually tea, I would say.
Being less tea than iced tea.
Than iced tea.
Which
Which is,
puts you on the chips and dip.
yeah, it's less tea than iced tea. So here's tea, here's iced tea. Who's got the next question? Yes? No, you got your question first, remember?
You touched on this briefly, but could you speak a bit more to the pros and cons of loose leaf versus bagged tea, and also the practicalities of having loose leaf tea as a college student with limited space and a budget?
Well, I think loose leaf tea, like, if that's something that you're interested in, it's very practical, because I can speak to this quite personally. My roommate loves loose leaf tea. He's right over there filming. He is a big aficionado of loose leaf tea. It's very easy. You just buy the tea ball, and then you buy the loose leaf tea. It's really the same thing as buying bagged tea, except you have to put the tea into the tea ball before you can put it into the ball.
But the tea ball also becomes its own mixer if you want to add sugar and milk to it.
Spoken like a champ. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I would like to know if you could rate the effect of different travel modes of the tea to the tea drinking experience in and of itself, as in like a paper cup versus a true ceramic mug or a travel.
Well, I would say like the travel mug, my experience with travel mugs is that they're mostly for coffee. I could be wrong. be happy to correct me if I'm wrong. If you give me you're wrong. But for the most part, in my opinion, travel mugs are for coffee. Because when you want to take tea, you want to sit and enjoy it. You don't want to bring it with you somewhere unless, I mean, to class maybe. Maybe that's the one time a travel mug is good. But
That's the paper cup versus the true mug.
you want to get your true mug. Now, I couldn't steal true mugs from Pierce. I've got 100 paper cups. I couldn't fit 100 paper mugs, 100 ceramic mugs into my coat, but I could fit mugs.
I'm disappointed in you.
I just
You might be
please.
You stole an entire tray of cookies.
I'm saying you of all people are the champion of stealing from Pierce.
Yeah, but that is it. So if you brought a mug, great. I see Kate has her mug. You want to hold that up? So and Charlie has a mug too. Anyone else has their mug? Noah, champs, Jeff. So some champs among us have mugs. That is the answer. Yes.
What kind of tea do you think has the most interesting packaging? Or do you think that packaging is antithetical to the enjoyment of tea?
You mean I just need a small? You mean packaging sort of like this? Wait,
yes.
Sort of like this packaging, or
for example, tea
or this
bags.
packaging?
Both are. I assume they are both. They're aesthetically joined in their.
Like how Celestial has pretty pictures.
I mean, in my opinion, I prefer the packaging of my tea to sort of be very simple. You know, I just want to know what kind of tea it is. That's really it. I don't need the flowers or the
girl riding a dragon.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's for me. The tea experience starts after you take it out of the package.
Okay.
Packaging is just a means to an end. All right. Yes. Oh, yes, you go first.
Can you reuse tea bags?
Now that's an interesting proposition. I have done it before, and it's not. I would say maybe not the best thing to do for the flavor of the tea because it tends to dilute as you use it more times. But if you're out of tea, because you know you need that cup in the late afternoon, just do it again. But again, not the best way to do it.
So emergencies only?
Yes, exactly. Charlie, you were up.
Do you have any advice for biscuit dunking and also on the issues of, for instance, stealth dunking in someone else's cup, as I know can be sometimes?
I think it depends how well you know the person. I mean, for example, if I was taking tea with my parents, who I would never be taking tea with, but if I was, say, probably would not do the stealth dunk, just because because if you get caught, I mean, ideally, never get caught.
There goes the internet.
There goes your internet privileges. Yeah.
They always know that there's the mush at the bottom that is your fault.
See, exactly. So I would say, if you have good friends, like friends you can really trust, to not hate you, then maybe then it's okay to do the stealth dunk. Otherwise, just ask first before you just go and dunk, just in front of them, because it's kind of, or funny maybe.
So related, but for biscuit recovery, because for those of you who regularly drink tea with biscuits, if you've ever dropped a biscuit in your tea while your tea is still hot, there is a moment of panic which occurs, and you may not know what to do. So, John, do you have any advice for?
That's actually a good question, Charlie.
Those who need to recover the biscuits.
Typically, what I do, because biscuit recovery is quite important. If you hold that in there 1 second too long, it's gone forever. Yeah, exactly like that. Gone forever. I typically use the same spoon that I use to stir in my sugar. Just reach in as soon as it happens. Don't wait, because if you wait, it's going to dissolve, and then it's forever gone. if you're quick and you have good reflexes, just reach in. Whoop, got it. Noah.
I know a lot of people like to, boil the water and then put the tea in a pot and pour the hot water into the pot and then pour from the pot into cups. Do you think this extra step is really worth it?
Forgot to bring my tea set. I have an actual tea set that I was going to bring as a demonstration, but I forgot. I think it is worth it, especially if you have a nice teapot. I think it's really worth it because then it gives a topic of conversation for whoever you're taking tea with. Oh, Noah, that's a great tea set you have. Where did you get that? Because that's how it's gonna go. I promise. That's how it's gonna go. So it'll give a great topic of conversation. You know, it'll make you feel like a champ, a boss. You take the tea set. I really see no downside to that. But again, that's just me. I'm sure someone else may find a downside. But did I skip you, Adrian?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Please
What's
go.
your opinion on dunking the tea bag to brew it faster versus leaving it in the cup to brew for a full 2 minutes or?
Well, that is actually a great question. I've done both methods in the past, and I sort of alternate depending on how I'm feeling at the time. If you leave it in there to seep, the tea is going to get stronger than if you dunk it. So, you know, if you're feeling like you really want a little extra oomph in your tea, leave it in there for 2 minutes and then take it out. But if you're just looking for something light, so that little airier, maybe a little less flavor, just do a little dunk action. Yeah. Just like this. Elizabeth?
In terms of being able to have tea anywhere.
Right.
I know that you are a fan of mooching and sneaking things out of places. But what is your opinion on mooching versus carrying around your own little tea sack thing?
What is, can I see that? What is that?
Yeah. Which has tea in it. Of course, I can only really carry it around.
Very cool. Yeah. I would say I'm jealous first. I want one. And if you have something like that, or even actually now that you remind me of that, cool thing to do. I don't know if you go to the store. Some of you do, I'm sure. You see Altoids. Maybe once you eat all the Altoids, put a few tea bags in there. Slip it right in your pocket. That's what I'm going to be doing now. I'm home for break. I'm going to be doing that, actually. That's really cool. Yes, I would say definitely do that. One, Jack, you're going to be the
Okay.
It's awesome.
I have 2 questions. Is a chilled Moroccan mint tea an adequate substitute for an iced tea in the summer months? Like brewed right from the leaves, you just stick it in the refrigerator for a little bit. No ice added or anything.
I mean, again, in my opinion, just because I've never really had that sort of thing, I prefer my tea to be hot. But as long as you're brewing it first, I would say yes.
Right.
Because then you're getting all the flavor, you're just sort of storing it away from it.
Okay. And then where's the best place to obtain tea?
That's rough. I would say the market actually has a lot of great selections. It depends a lot on what brands you like. Your local grocery store back at home may be well stocked with tea. I don't know, mine actually is, surprisingly. But the market has a great selection. So they have a lot of good flavors you can do. Not very expensive either, surprisingly. But Elizabeth has a lot to
Yeah, I have
add.
a comment. We just went to, there's like actually a health food store in Mount Vernon. I forget what it's called, but
Could you
it's...
speak up, sir?
Okay, there's a health food store in Mount Vernon, and I forget what it's called, but it's like near the, I don't know, where is it?
Main Square.
Yeah.
It's a good.
Yeah,
I know
I don't know. They have a lot of teas. They have loose leaf. They have others. They have like a lot of those yogi teas.
Does that answer your question? Alright, Jack.
Alright, so I have 2.5 questions.
Awesome.
My half question is a piggyback off an earlier question. It's a piggyback. You said you didn't really like iced tea. How do you feel about the appearance of iced tea on Law and Order? Do you think that's a sellout, given that his first hit single was Cop Killa, and then he is a cop on a television show?
Yes.
Okay. So my first real question is, that was half a question, so piggyback. My first question is, do you prefer to have your tea in like a tall cylindrical mug or like a low round mug? Because I prefer a low round one.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because Pierce offers both choices, and you know, when you go in, you may think, oh my God, which one? That's a really good question. I mean, yeah. I prefer a taller mug, not necessarily because I'm drinking more tea than the squat more, well, it's more squat, but more because, I don't know, it's just more awesome. I guess this again goes back to the pencil lecture. I don't know.
So you prefer phallic?
I saw.
Yes, please. Yes, I'm not.
Sorry. So you said you like to wake up in the morning with, a pot of black tea, right? I prefer to wake up in the morning with a bump of pure Colombian cocaine. What kind of tea would you recommend for when I'm coming down 2 hours later? It's a half hour, and I tried chamomile, and it just knocks me out. But I want to be awake so that I can power through it. It feels like I'm being defeated by the cocaine. It's too close because I fought for months to get off heroin, and the white tea is just too
Have you
simple.
tried dissolving cocaine in your tea as if it were sugar?
Oh.
I mean, that's an option. As for a type of tea, maybe not black tea. Maybe go something a bit sort of more in the middle. Maybe a Lady Grey or Darjeeling, kind of a blend. And maybe even best of both worlds, put some of the cocaine in the Lady Grey.
Okay.
Just try. I don't know.
I wouldn't try anything at this point.
You might also want to try coffee because it's also from Colombia.
I get if there's no more questions. I guess let's end it now because that I don't think I can So there's lots of different kinds of tea over here and lots of water. So